How's it going, y'all? Welcome to another episode of PsychoActivision Presents. I'm your host, Peter Strickland, and I'm about to do my first interview outside of my home studio. But before we get started on that, I wanted to ask that if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you liked about the podcast, what you didn't like, or if there's like some local Alabama or Georgia musicians that you want us to have on sometime, that'd be awesome. You can also follow us on Instagram or TikTok at PsychoActivision. For today's episode, I'm really excited because I'm in the Birmingham area and I'm about to interview the frontman of one of my favorite psychedelic bands. We've got Jake Wittig from the Burning Peppermints here.
Hey, oh, thank you. Applause.
Of course, it's just me applauding, but you know, I'll applaud for you. How's it going, dude? It's been, you and I have only really ever been in person with each other maybe a couple times. I've seen you live a bunch of times, but
yes,
you know, how you doing these days?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, just kicking it.
Yeah. One thing I guess I will start the conversation off with, because this is something recent to talk about. Y'all, the Burning Peppermints released a single not too long ago, Falcon.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Which I've been enjoying a lot. I like that it's an instrumental. Was that, I mean, you guys don't have a lot of instrumentals usually, do you?
No, not really. I actually don't know if any of our other material that we've released is instrumental. Maybe there is one in there that we've released. We've definitely written plenty of instrumental music, but you know, we've written a lot of stuff that has not seen the light of day yet. But it's all coming. It's all coming down the pipes. But yeah, no, that was written when the lineup of the band was myself, Sam Strickland, who's still playing drums with us, and Alex Lipscomb, who plays bass on that track. That was the lineup at the time. And it was a really, that song and the other music that we wrote around that time, that some of which may get released at some point. All that music was kind of born out of like, Sam and Alex are just killer musicians, just so good. And it really forced me to get like a lot better as a guitar player, because so much of what I do with the Burning Peppermints, especially, it's really, I'm just trying to do as good as I can to like write a song or to just get an idea out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm a musician in the sense that I'm in the constant pursuit of honing my craft and getting better as a guitar player. I play the guitar so that I can express musical ideas that I have. I wouldn't say that I'm anything like, you know, a virtuoso. The first time that I actually played guitar in somebody else's band, I had a really hard time because I realized I don't really know how to really play guitar. I know how to play like Peppermint's guitar.
No,
and I kind of had to back up. I had to back up and go like, okay, wait, I should actually pick like I was taught to and play individual strings. And I mean, like if you listen to everything on Dirty Rainbow, like I just hit all the strings all the time. It was fun, you know. That was all I was trying to do.
I think it was kind of fitting for the style of that album though, because it was very,
definitely.
I'd say that's not what I don't listen to that album and go, it's a melodic album. It's a rhythmic album. It's a fast album. It's like, does that make sense? So that's how I interpret it.
No, yeah, that's very interesting. I've never heard anybody like describe it in terms of it's more rhythmic than melodic, but I think you're right. Well, I think that's a very interesting
maybe
insight.
It's because I'm a drummer and so whenever I've seen y'all play live, which I think the majority of the music I've seen y'all play live, I think was from that era, because I haven't seen y'all in a few years, but but like to me that stuff, it's a lot more like, it's like music that I can move to and dance to in a more than it is like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like gives me a visceral feeling more than like a song where it's just like, wow, that melody is like cerebral and in my head. I hope this comes off as a compliment, because to me it is. I love rhythm music.
No, yeah, I think that the method of interaction with that music is not really singing along with it as much as it is, dancing to it.
Shaking your head, something, yeah.
Right. Which is interesting though too, because the follow-up that we did with Glitter Vomit was the first time that we had songs, Really, it was just the single that we released, Don't Try to Lie to Me, that people would sing along with that live.
Yeah.
And that's like the only song that I've ever written that's ever happened with, but it was a cool feeling.
I feel like the one that, excuse me, because I can't always remember names of songs, so I sometimes will probably just be like, the one that has this lyric in it, but your song off of Dirty Rainbow, it's like the second or third song, the L-L-O. What song is that?
Elevator.
Sorry, there you go. Elevator. I can't remember why I brought that song up. What were we just talking about? Where we
singing along?
For me, that's the one I want to sing along with. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just kind of, I don't know. It's that one's fun.
People like to spell, you know? Yeah. it's ingrained in us from YMCA. There's plenty of other songs that spell out the word love.
What is that hip hop song? OPP, you know?
Yeah.
Which,
and then the most balls to the wall crazy spelling song of all time, that Saturday Night song where they spell out Saturday night. Like, how did that become a hit? It's so ridiculous.
Are you like me though, that I don't know why, if I had lived in the 70s, I probably would hate disco, but because I don't, I actually love disco. When I listen to disco, I just go, this is so, I think what it is.
Yeah, I
to
agree.
me, it's that when it's weird that people ever hated that and said that's sellout music, because now pop is to me sellout music, but back then I'm like, this is still groovy and like.
No, I'm chronically behind the curve. I start to like stuff when it's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not some stance that I've decided to take, or I'm like, pop music is bad because everybody likes it. And then as soon as people stop liking it, though, then now I can start to appreciate it. I'll constantly be like, to my sister who likes current music, be like, oh, hey, this song from 5 years ago, that's a great song. She's like, yeah, we all know. It's been out for years.
Yeah.
And we already loved that song when it came out a long time ago, and you hated it. But now I'm like, oh, I get it, finally.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, I'm sure people felt that way about like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and stuff. It's like, at the time, it was so saturated, everybody was like loving that music and playing it everywhere, that when you listen to it now, it's like a nostalgic feeling because it makes you just think of a time that's completely different from now, before cell phones.
Yeah.
Right before cell phones.
No, I was very little and really enjoyed the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. I just, it's just those tight harmonies like that are just so satisfying to listen to.
Well, everything sounds perfect.
Yes.
There's not an imperfection in the music, really.
Yeah, and then the thing though that has recently gone all the way around from, oh, I remember this from childhood and I remember not liking it for some reason, to like, I hate this, why was this ever popular, back to like, I actually love this, is Sugar Ray. I actually will unironically jam to some Sugar Ray songs.
Have you ever seen the video? This has been something, I'm kind of stepping on another podcast, much more famous podcast, so who fucking cares? But there's a video of the lead singer Sugar Ray in like the early 2000s, and he's like walking out of a club or something, and there's a bunch of reporters there like taking pictures of him, and someone shouts out, "Sugar gay," and he tries to, he acts like he wants to fight the dude. He's like, "What'd you say?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's right. But now he leans into it and he puts it on his Instagram bio and he's like, "Sugar gay, haha." Like,
that's funny.
Because I think now he's like a host of one of those like America's Got Talent kind of shows.
Oh yeah, it seems like he's always had like a good sense of humor about how ridiculous that group
Maybe
is.
Not that night, but like when he got mad about that. But
oh, really?
He wanted to fight the dude over the sugar gay thing.
Oh, I thought you were saying you're just playing.
No,
I haven't seen this clip you're talking about.
I wish I had a TV right here. I could look it up for you and show you. No, but okay, so like I'll play it right here so the audience can see it. Maybe I'll give you a link or something. But no, it's hilarious because he genuinely gets upset and he wants to fight the guy.
So he's really upset.
And then the guy's kind of like, "I didn't say anything," or he backs away and like it. But that's why it's funny is now he leans into it and he thinks it's funny. But
the thing that made me be like, this guy's all right, and maybe part gave myself permission to like actually go back and listen to that music and take it a little bit more seriously, is College Humor made those videos if Google was a guy, and he was in one of them where like at the very end he comes in and he says, He says, Sugar Ray, ironically cool yet?
That sound though in the late 90s was pretty popular. Like okay, this is, in like 2007, my family went to Universal Studios, and while we were there, Lost Lonely Boys was supposed to play. They're the band that does that song. It's like, how far is heaven? Because it's like the same kind of you know, I have an awful voice, but it's it's just funny to me that mixture of like it's like almost getting into reggae, like, you know, beachy kind of sound, but it's not really. But yeah, it's that was a fun trend. Let me ask you this then, from the same era, what are your thoughts on nu metal?
Okay, nu metal, I've also recently gained appreciation for, but that is another thing that I'll be like, yo, this Limp Bizkit song is pretty cool. And then I'll be like, yeah, we know, it's been around for a long time. Like, when I first, okay, so Ryan, so we set the mic levels. I'm about to clip your mic doing this, but Ryan does the best Fred Durst impression of just the little like call outs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, come on. Like, he does them so good. Yeah. And so he was just doing that one. I was like, what is that from? And he played Rollin' for me. And I was like, whoa, this shit rules. I like really every once in a while will put on Rollin' and just lose my mind. I love that song.
I love the fact that I got this past year, since it was I guess 2021 was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I watched the National Geographic, I think it was National Geographic, like a documentary series where they had a bunch of footage. It was so interesting because I was so little, I don't remember 9/11 that well. But one of the hilarious things though is that I looked this up. 9/11, after it happened, any movie or music video or like TV episode or anything that featured the Twin Towers in the background or in it at all is considered like historic, and it's considered like a piece of, it's considered like it could be in a museum, almost, that kind of thing. And Rollin' is one of those because they filmed it on top of the World Trade Center. And it's so crazy to me that I'm like,
wow,
it's almost like when 3 6 Mafia won an Academy Award and you're like, wait. So this is just weird because you don't expect it. You know, you're like, Limp Bizkit has something that is like nationally historic and the US like gave them an award over it. And then, I don't know, it's just funny, but.
That's very weird. I didn't know that was a whole thing. But speaking of that, have you heard of it's not even really so much a theory as much as it is just like something somebody noticed about the Muppet movie. Or maybe it's not the Muppet movie, but it's some Muppet property.
Yeah.
And it's like, Kermit is having an It's a Wonderful Life type moment.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, everything would be better if I was dead. And then they go see the world if Kermit was dead. And it released after 9/11. But part of him being like, what would the world be like if I was dead? And they go to New York and you can see the Twin Towers in one of the shots. And it basically, the implication is that if Kermit was dead, 9/11 wouldn't have happened. So it's in some roundabout way, Kermit being alive leads us to a series of events that causes 9/11 to happen, is basically the implication of the flashback in that movie.
That's pretty funny. Well, now that we've gone all over the place with this conversation.
Well, it's a real podcast now because we're talking about conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. It's like you got to talk about conspiracy theories, psychedelics, and maybe fleshlights or something. I don't know. But where was I going to go with that? Let's kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about your origins as a musician, and then kind of like origins of Burning Peppermints, because I'll kind of like throw this in there, and this is not like a secret, but the main thing that I've noticed over the years is that Burning Peppermints is mainly you, that and like it's kind of like, I'll compare you to another psychedelic band that I think does the same kind of thing. Triptide's one of my favorite psychedelic bands. Yeah, they pretty much are Glenn Brigman, who's like their frontman, and he's the only person that's kind of like followed through all their albums, and he you know, has other people who are part of the band, but he's kind of like the through line that's keeping it going. I mean, that's who I guess I would compare you to in that way. But over the years, kind of tell me like the origins of your creative journey, and then like how Burning Peppermint started, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had just some desire in me to want to play guitar guitar seemed cool. I liked Van Halen when I was little.
Yeah.
So I got a guitar when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, something like that. And I started taking lessons, made really terrible progress because I never practiced. And just over the years, I on and off played guitar. And then got back into it in middle school and knew a kid who played drums. His mom had like played in a lot of bands and stuff, and they had a lot of music equipment at his house. We started a band. That band broke off into the band that became the Burning Peppermints, me and the singer for that band. And then lineup changes continued to happen and continue to happen. And but I think that the thing with the Burning Peppermints, as far as the lineup's considered, is there was some apprehension that I had over like, well, it can't just be me like going forward. But I more or less got encouraged to be like, don't think like that. Like you writing all of the music, like keep going with it. Like you're the heart and soul of what this is, and you shouldn't feel like you have to end it just because of that. Like keep going. So I did, and we've had a lot of different lineups over the years, but at this point I see it more as like a collective and like a family that I have curated of musicians that I've been lucky enough to play with. Like anybody that's ever like, once a peppermint, always a peppermint. Like,
yeah,
nobody's ever been like kicked out of the band or anything, you know. There are people that have elected to leave, but there's like sometimes, you know, we do shows that have certain people playing with us, and sometimes we do shows that have other people playing with us. Certain material requires 3 drummers, so we have 3 drummers for that. But then it's not like, oh well, all of these people are in the band all the time, and if we're having band practice, every one of those people is coming. That's sort of why I made a post over the pandemic, being like, okay, you're in the band now, like everybody. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I don't remember that one, no.
I had like a thing where it's like your first letter of your first name and this, you know, the month you were born, and like this is the instrument that you're playing in the band. And it was all stupid shit that would, you know, get thrown together. But I really do feel like that. I even have a song that I've been working on for a little while that has been it's taking a lot of tweaking, but I'm building it only out of samples that people sent me via Instagram, that trying to take this idea even further. And I had people send me voice memos and videos of themselves just making little noises, and I've been turning those into drums and leads and trying to pitch and bend and make everybody together into one big symphony.
That sounds awesome. That's really cool.
I think it's a fun idea, though. Something that I feel like I've always wanted the Burning Peppermints to be a collaborative experience, like in terms of the audience. It's a conversation with the audience, but more so than usual. I always want to. I like to involve the people that are there. Something that I realized recently, though, is that not everybody really wants to do that, you know?
It's very true. That's why I like that sometimes you guys have developed things, and we'll talk about this maybe more a little bit later, but like more immersive live experiences. And I like that you make sure that people know ahead of time, like, that this is not really for the faint of heart necessarily. You might be surrounded by musicians.
Yes.
I've never been to one of those, but,
well,
you know.
So the first one of those that we did, we did it at Trim Tab. It was our Golden Road to Eternity show that we performed twice now. I'd really love to perform it a third time. We absolutely have plans
I want to see it. I hate that I missed it. I just didn't live anywhere near Birmingham at the time. So,
well, when we do it again, hopefully we'll do it in multiple towns, or we've actually also been exploring the idea of doing it next time sort of as a festival, but I really want to go I want to go absolutely bananas with it and like blindfold people and put them on a bus and drive them out to a field. I just don't know how many people I could actually convince to do that. I'm not really worried about making money on it. I just want people to be there for it. But it's a thought. We'll see if it gets to that point. But the first time that we did it, we're all dressed in like robes, and there's a priestess in a golden mask that's like beckoning people in and telling them like, if you leave this circle that the audience is supposed to be inside, you're like kicked out and you can't come back. So the show is about this long, but don't leave. And then we get some people in there and they see it and they're kind of freaked out. They're like, oh, fuck no. And they turn around and they get out. And then there are some people that are like a little bit apprehensive but get in. And that version of the show starts with this like prayer. It's like, we thank you, Lord Ziva, for the, and then people like freaking out like, no, fuck no. And they were like, that's some satanic shit. Fuck that. And they got out. So I had to start doing because of that. And it's like,
are these people that just happened upon this performance?
Oh, I mean, yeah, they were walk-ups. They didn't.
I was about to say, because like, I'm like, if anyone knows anything, it's not that y'all aren't like some metal band that's like performing sacrifices on stage, but you know what I'm saying? I would never, if I listen to one of your songs, I would never go, well, that's something I can take the whole family to. You know, it's like, it's rock and roll.
The second time that we did it, we like baptized people with blood.
I mean, not real blood, I'm assuming, but
no, it was fake blood. But we baptized people with blood and weird stuff like that. So I was a little worried that somebody might freak out again. Like, they don't, because when people are just walking up and they don't know what the band is about and they're just like, this seems cool, especially because both times that we did it, it was free. So it was like, well, let's go check it out if you're already there.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I started putting on all of those shows a little sign that says this show is a work of fiction, purely because I didn't want people to freak out. It was just easier that way than trying to explain to people like, oh, because we did another show where part of it is like, okay, now take this experimental drug. And it's like,
the Dr. Foster?
Yes. I was like, people need to know that they're not actually going to get dosed at this show.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because 60 years ago, that probably was an actual dose, you know, at a show like that.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, they don't know, you know, that's the other, I mean, for a lot of people that aren't in that world, going to a music venue or seeing something like that is like not a common occurrence for them. So they don't really know what's going on a lot of the time. I mean, you know, obviously a lot of our audience is creative people that, you know, get it. But you always do have those randoms, and I don't want them to feel left out or get too confused and get turned off from the experience because, you know, they can't figure out what's going on. It's a weird thing with the immersive experiences, because it on the one hand is a very specific thing, but I never want it to be so esoteric that it's inaccessible.
I completely understand. I do like, at least though, that you can see normal music everywhere. So it's kind of like, it's nice that at least a place like Birmingham that might not have a lot of immersive, weird, experimental kind of shows like that. Because if you go to a city like Atlanta or plenty of other places, you know, if you go to like New York, you're going to see too many of those. But I think it's cool that you're doing that, because I haven't heard of someone doing something exactly like that at all in Birmingham. Let's backtrack a little, not backtrack, but just kind of going back to like early, or like reminiscing a little bit maybe. I want to tell you about my first impressions of Burning Peppermints and how I like came to know about y'all.
Yeah.
My good friend Seth Brown, one time back in like I think it was 2015, but it could have been 2016, gave me a CD that was like it was one of those that looks like a vinyl, a burn CD. And he was like, hey, I saw this band last night from Birmingham at Mama Mocha's in Auburn. I got this CD from there. They're called Burning Peppermints. I think you'd like it. Like, cause he knew I liked, psychedelic music has always been like my thing, that I was just kind of like, that's my favorite kind of music. And then that sat in my car in the CD player for so long because because who listens to CDs that much anymore? So like it was the thing where if I for some reason couldn't, like my phone was about to die or something, I was like, that's what I listen to every time. And sometimes even just by choice. Yeah. But I loved the sound and I was like, well, I need to see these people. I need to see them live or, I need to get more of this. And that, I guess it was 2016 when y'all played Sloss Fest. Or was it 27? I think it was 2016.
It was one of those two.
It was one of those two. Because I think it was 2016. But anyway. And then I saw y'all were in the lineup for that and I was super excited. And I saw y'all perform. I really enjoyed it. And one thing that I noticed from the get-go is that y'all were dedicated to the visual component. Not that you had projections or anything, because I don't think you had those at that show. But the fact that you guys were all wearing the sunglasses and the matching turtlenecks, which props to you because it was July, or I think it was July, it was at least June, and that had to have been hot.
I'm not even kidding. I don't even remember noticing it. Like, I think all of us were like, oh, we were actually pretty comfortable.
Maybe they had good fans on stage.
Maybe. I don't know. I think we were all just so caught up in all of it.
Well, I mean, was that like the biggest thing that y'all had performed to that date?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Far and away the biggest crowd that we had played to at that point. And maybe the biggest crowd we played to ever, honestly. The only thing
it's a festival. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would get close was we played the Von Braun Center. But that wasn't nearly as cool as Sloss Fest. Definitely the GOAT.
But like, I saw y'all perform there. I really enjoyed it. I was like, well, I hope they cut. I hope I can see them more often. And then it just so happened that like, several of my friends who were in bands, like Seth was in Lady Legs. He knew you, and like I started to kind of like cross paths with y'all a little bit. And then I would see y'all perform, like y'all came to Opelika and Auburn a couple times where I got to see you in the lime green and highlighter pink the suits, which Walker's told me about how nasty those got at one point from like sweating and leaving them in the car or something.
Oh yeah, no, they're disgusting.
Do you still have them?
Yes. Then, but what? I think it was one or two of those started to get moldy.
Yeah, that's what he told me. Yeah, he said they stunk.
They were disgusting because we didn't really have the foresight that we eventually had, which was bring multiple outfits on tour. So we just wear the same ones every time. And I don't sweat that much when I play, but Ahmad and Ryan would just look like they got out of the pool when we get done. Yeah. And it added up.
Well, like, I think my point is early on, even in venues where, I mean, like I saw y'all play, I'm pretty positive about this. I might even played the same show. I can't remember because I played there a few times, but at Avondale in Auburn, like Avondale Bar. And
I played there with Sun Eyes, but I don't think Peppermints played there.
For some reason, I thought y'all did, but I've seen you play there before. But my point is, whether I've seen Burning Peppermints in a smaller venue or like a place as big as Sloss Fest, y'all always have been dedicated to being like, well, we don't, like, it seems like y'all's attitude is more like, well, we don't care if there's 20 people in the crowd. We're gonna look the part. We're gonna have something on stage that shows people who we are. And because I've had this conversation with other people on the podcast, I personally really would love to be in a band that is kind of like that, where you don't necessarily all have to wear the same thing, but that there's like a theme and that you're all kind of like revolving around something. Because are you as tired as I am of seeing bands where it's just like, oh, there's the guy in the Carhartt beanie and the thrift store this and thrift store sweat. Yeah. I mean, I think my point is, it's just, I think that's been the indie look of just kind of like wearing thrift store clothes has been done to death at this point. And I kind of like it. Like, even in other genres, I like when I see a hip hop group that has like a visual component. I like when I see a metal band that has like anybody who takes it beyond the music and says, seeing me live is not just standing in front of me and hearing the music. It's having to go through the experience of like being immersed in this visually and auditorially. So
yeah, I think it telegraphs intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing that is important about deliberate presentation like that, it's something that I heard Jack White talk about that really was what made me decide to do that way with the Burning Peppermints, he was talking about when the White Stripes were starting out and he was in other bands, it was like to telegraph that you were cool, that you were real, you had to wear ripped jeans and flannel, you know. And if you weren't wearing that, you weren't real. And it was like, that's so prescriptive of like, you have to look this certain way, dress this certain way to show that you're not doing that. It's so antithetical. So like, go so far in the other direction and wear something ridiculous that no one wears, that you wouldn't just wear on the street. And suddenly you've shown that you are real, that you don't give a shit about what the fashion sense is and what's cool to wear and what the people that are selling out arenas are wearing and how they look or even how they sound. You're just doing what you want to do because you enjoy it. I think that it can be such a trap when you start performing, doing anything artistically, and you start to get feedback from people and you can let it flavor what you're doing way too much.
Yeah.
Because the reason that those people are giving that feedback to begin with was because you decided to do what you wanted to do. You went out there and you said, I care about this thing that I'm doing so much that I want to go do it on stage in front of other people. And you have to really believe in that when you first start doing it. But then you start, I think that some people think about it, and I definitely thought about it this way for a long time in terms of growing an audience, is it's not about finding more people that naturally like what you do, because that ultimately at the end of the day, your brand is going to be what you excel at, what turns you on, what you really like, what is really you. Seek out more people that are into that. That's what you should be doing. I think that for a long time, the plan was, well, we should just keep broadening. We should take this thing that we were doing that was really specific and make it broader so that we can reach a broader audience. And that's just not it's just nobody can do that.
Yeah.
Nobody can get every demographic of every age group, gender, fashion sense, state, country, language. You cannot cross all of those barriers. It's literally impossible. Find your lane and dig in and do something sick. And if you have but it's not even about finding a lane. Do what you enjoy.
Absolutely. Well, because then you're not gonna, it's kind of like the thing I've heard people talk about with like being in a band with people where, if you're in a band with people and you're successful, you're gonna have to spend so much time with those people, so you better like them. If you're gonna spend a bunch of time doing anything creative, you better enjoy doing it, because it's very time intensive. Making music is such a thing that like it takes so much effort, you know, and especially these days, because we don't really live in an era where you can just record a song and then it's like, cool, that's the end of it. It's like, well, no, promoting a song and marketing it and making a music video or doing this and that, like there's a million things now that the internet's awesome because it makes it so we have so many possibilities, but also it's a little bit crippling because it's like everybody's a graphic designer now. Everybody's so it's everybody's a video editor. So you have to have everything. There was something you said that I'm trying to go back to. Well, I think honestly, I'm seeing this Tame Impala set list on the wall, and it makes me want to bring them up because they're one of the few like alternative psychedelic bands that I've seen over the past 10 or 15 years kind of cross over into, like, Tame Impala came to Atlanta last year and played State Farm Arena, and I was like, what the hell? I saw them at the Tabernacle 10 years ago, and like that, and that was a big deal to see a band that was like from Australia that was that alternative, but they're kind of a good example of what is that from, by the way? What show is that?
That was a Pitchfork Festival in Chicago. That was the first time that I ever saw them live, and that was That was the show that I saw that made me want to do lights.
What year was that?
2018.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah, and it was insane because, especially too at that time, you know, I think Pitchfork did a lot of lead work for Tame Impala in the early days, you know, producing music videos for them and giving them a lot of good press. And, you know, so obviously they have a good relationship, but I feel like Tame Impala was kind of too big to even be playing that festival, the size that it was. And it was spectacular.
But isn't that fucking insane? Because I can listen to that music and go, it's a little more mainstream sounding than it used to. It's a bit more like clean sounding than it used to.
Yes.
But I prefer the days when the early EPs and like Interspeaker, the stuff that was more like, it sounded like it could have been recorded in a room like this, you know, like it kind of sounded like a bit more, not grungy, but just kind of like it had like a really nice crackly distortion on it or something that made it just kind of like, this is not like, I don't know. I get annoyed anytime an artist gets so big that their music, I can hear every little thing perfectly. And it's like, there's no time. I need a little imperfection. I need something that makes me go, oh, this is still human. It's not like it's like an uncanny valley. Eventually it does start to get to where music sounds too perfect.
That's something though that has been interesting to me lately though, is that uncanny valley stuff. Because I don't even know, I haven't really figured out how to effectively play with it, but I think that's something that makes vaporwave compelling. And I think that certain other musical genres do take advantage of in very interesting ways, though a lot of times, you know, it's not intentional, but like those country harmonies that are so perfectly tight. Ugh. that kind of stuff I don't really like. And there's just a certain element, there's a certain point when polish becomes too much. But in another way too, I've gained an appreciation for, I love lo-fi music. And I'm when I produce my own music, you know, stuff like any of the singles that we've released in the past few years that I worked on myself, and that was made with the intention of it being lo-fi. But then recently, having a desire to go a little hi-fi, bring a little bit more definition to things, it has given me much greater appreciation for how difficult it is to do that.
I feel like I heard that a lot more on Falcon. Falcon was the first song of yours where I went, oh, like I could feel the bass drum hitting instead of like I can kind of hear it more. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm insanely happy to hear you say that, because I still feel like I could have done better with that mix.
Clean.
I like it.
But the reason that I released that, and the reason that I released the first Liquid Magic song that I did was I'm not perfect at it yet. Well, wow, even that. I'm trying to let go of my perfectionism. And in talking about, I'm not perfect at letting go of my perfectionism yet, I cannot run away from it. I've realized in the past few years that I have a really toxic perfectionist mindset, and that the only thing that having a perfectionist mindset was doing for me was making it was just, all it was doing was stopping me from releasing music. And it still is. I have a lot of music that's like, you could say is done. And I'm like, oh, but I could make it a little bit better. And so I owe it to the people that are going to listen to this to make it a little bit better. I owe it to myself to make it a little bit better. I owe it to the musicians that played on it to make it a little bit better. And ultimately
because you're never going to make it. It's never going to be perfect.
No, it won't. It's a losing battle. But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. It's what I've realized is it's excuses. It's excuses in the thought that at some point I'll be able to think up a way to make this good enough. I'll change what it really is I'll figure out the right way to EQ this bass so that then I'll love myself.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is you have to do that first.
Yeah. You
have to love yourself first, and then you can actually mix the song.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's really difficult. It's something that I had a hard time talking about. It's something I would get squeamish talking about, self-love. And I think that for a while in our society too, we kind of demonized it a little bit. Like it like kind of like made fun of it, like be like, oh, people that love themselves are crazy. Like oh, that person loves themselves. Oh, what a nut.
But then now everybody's depressed and is like, I suck. And then everybody's like, no, you're great. You're fine. You know, and it's like, yeah, I know what you mean.
And yeah, it's something that I avoided for a long time, but it is at the core of what I'm trying to do, because I can't. I realized the things that I have accomplished, big and small, didn't fill that hole for me.
I know what you mean.
We played Slossfest. I should have been so happy, and I was in some way, but it wasn't like, it didn't really fill me up.
I know what you mean.
And it was because, and it wasn't like I did it with the intention that it would, but I wish that I could have absorbed it more. And the only reason that I was unable to was because I didn't feel like I deserved it. Mm-hmm. You know, just there's a million reasons. All to bring it back to what we were talking about before. I didn't think that mix was perfect. I didn't, and I still don't think it is. I don't think it matters though, because I've just got to put this stuff out there. There was something that, you know, if you had asked me before tour, the last thing I would have told you was that I would learn something from Kevin Gates on this tour. Yeah. I didn't know anything about him before we went, but I truly feel like I think I healed a lot of trauma on that tour. Just learning a lot of self-confidence that I needed to gain to go in and know that I could do it.
Yeah.
And operate. And I think that I did a great job doing that. But there was a part every night in the show where Kevin says to the audience, if you have greatness on the inside, you ought to share it with the world. And it's so hard, because it's like, oh, inflated ego, what a dickhead. You think you have greatness on the inside? Like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know, and it's like, no, I do think this is great. That's why I do it, because I love it. I love myself. I love the music that I make. I listen to it all the time because I really, truly love it. I made it because I love it. I love to create these things. And I need to just share that.
Well, he also said, share it with the world. He didn't say, if you have greatness inside you, keep it to yourself because only you deserve it. What he's trying to say is, I don't think it's selfish. I think it's trying to say everybody has a purpose, or it's like, or maybe not everybody has like a driving purpose, but if you do have that driving purpose, you know, to share something with the world, then you should do it. I mean, like, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, like I said, if I don't think it's selfish.
Oh, no, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. But the manner in which in my life, societally, trauma, whatever else, it is, I have an aversion. I feel like squeamish about it. Yeah. Like, oh, that's not right. But it is, it's fine. And I know it is, but it's a scar that I'm trying to heal, because it is the thing that will stop me from releasing the music. It's the thing that will stop me from booking a show, you know, whatever, or releasing a YouTube video, or posting a picture on Instagram, or even leaving comments on things. Oh, I understand, you know, I will get so wrapped up in like, well, who do I think I am that I'm allowed to like say things and exist in the world? But go ahead, sorry. But the other thing too about that, and even again, it's like I'm fighting squeamishness, like a sickness in my stomach when I say this, but because it's still, even though I know that this isn't the case, it still sounds so self-inflating to say this, but Something else that Kevin would say on the tour too was, you don't know who you're going to heal sharing your story with others.
Yeah.
You don't know. And when you don't share, you may be taking away somebody else's opportunity to heal.
I understand. No, that's awesome. Kind of in that same vein, let me give you an anecdote that reminds me of. 2020 was an awful year, obviously, and I remember at the end of, maybe it was, I think it was 2020 that what I'm thinking of, that there's a musician that I know from Athens, and where UGA and everything, and he posted at the end of the year being like, this year sucked. I fucking, like, this was my worst year of my life. I can't believe how awful this was. And that year, a band that he was in, that he played bass in, had released one of my favorite albums of the year. Like, not even just of local music, just like in general, I played that album like hundreds of times. So I just sent him a DM and was like, I'm really sorry that your year sucked. Just so you know, mine was made better because of you. Yeah. And I could tell that it really resonated with him, because I was just trying to be like, I'm not even trying to be cheesy. It's just like, that gets me in my feels sometimes, where I'm like, you helped me by just doing something that you thought was like a fun time. But yeah, I think my whole point of what I'm saying and like telling that anecdote and everything is just that it's just illustrating your point that sometimes you're too in your own head about maybe what, like, you get bogged down with everything else going on, and then you're kind of like, you have to be reminded of those things of like, I certainly don't think that, like, maybe not the style of this podcast has quite that kind of reach, but at the same time, it's like anything that you put out there that is creative, it might, you know, one of your friends, I've had times where one of my friends does something creative, and then I go, man, I've been wanting to do something like that. And so then once they share it, I go, maybe I'll try that now. And, you know, I think a lot of it's about being able to relate to other people in that way. So,
well, we love art.
Yeah.
All of us. And at no point when you're consuming that art that you love, are you saying like, it's just, why are you not allowed to do that too?
Yeah.
You can invent reasons all day, and all of it comes back to low self-worth if you think that you're not allowed to do that too.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want in the whole world.
That's why I started this podcast, dude, because literally, I will relate to you for a second, but on the level of like video work and podcasting, I, for several years, watched all my friends, I'm a drummer. I don't really play. I play guitar and bass on a basic level, but I don't know how to write music really. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I always felt secondary in bands, because I was like, well, I can't really add that much other than just like, I'm making a beat for what they've written already. And so I've never really been in a band where I felt like I was part of the collaboration process. And then once I started kind of getting into like, you know, wanting to do video work, it just kind of like, for years, I had this thing of perfectionism where I was like, you watch like a professional podcast and you go, well, mine's not going to look like that. Or even you watch something that one of your friends made and you go, well, mine's not going to sound as good as that or this. And so I probably wanted to start a podcast or like a YouTube series or something for like a year or two before I ever actually did it. I had the gear to do it. I just I never actually did it. And then this podcast, actually, this will be the first episode since we hit 1 year. Nice. Yeah, dude.
Congrats.
I mean, we do, you know, only once a month episodes right now, but it's just, eventually I would love for this to be a couple times a month or something. And what I get out of this is I'm only highlighting, you know, local musicians from Atlanta, from Auburn, Opelika, from Birmingham, from all over the South, really, because that's where, you know, I've lived my whole life. I get a lot of enjoyment out of promoting your stuff and, you know, talking to you about where you came from. It inspires me to have these conversations because I get to see, even if someone does something that's completely different from what I do, like my last guest was a friend of mine that has a podcast that's basically, it's similar to like a D&D style like RPG game. And that I have no experience in that, but it was so cool seeing, you know, his success and him get excited about it and how he got into that from, and he had the same kind of thing where he was like, I just want to start doing something. And once you start actually doing it and you got to get past the perfectionism or the, you know, the things in your head, the anxiety. But once you get doing it, it's like the momentum just grows and you don't really want to stop.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing lights a little over a year now, and I am so much better than I was a year ago because I was forced to do it like 200, 300 times in the last year.
Yeah.
And it's when I realized that's all I really had to do was just keep at it. It's really just a numbers game at that point. Just go in and something I think about a lot and something that I tell people a lot when they're trying to learn a new skill or feeling stale with a skill that they've been working on for a long time is a quote from Penn Jillette. And I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying like, anybody can learn to do a magic trick. Only a certain select few freaks will care enough to practice it 500 times to make it look like magic.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true with everything. Anybody, if you could do, you physically, you know, like there's no limit to what you can do in terms of like creating artwork, you know, learning video, learning software, learning to code. There's a limitless amount of things that you could learn to do, but there's a very narrow band of things that you can tolerate for a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like graphic design, I could tolerate for a little bit of time, and I learned a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But it's not something I have as high of a tolerance for as I do for music or lighting or other things.
Let me kind of shift off of that for a second. I don't think you do make like psychedelic visuals though, usually, right? Or I mean, I've seen stuff in the past you made for other bands.
I did it for a while, and yeah, and I sort of, that was what part of what made me want to get into lighting was because I had done that, adding a visual element to music and reacting to what I was hearing visually. So I thought like I could figure out how to do that with lights.
Lights are more practical, but like, I mean, in terms of like every show needs lights, not every show needs projections. But like I personally, something I was trying to get into before the pandemic started, like the week the pandemic shut everything down, I had my first gig where I was going to use my own psychedelic visuals for a band. I put it together where I had like a whole, you know, their set was probably like a 30-minute set. I had like a 35-minute visual show with their logo where it would kind of come in and out and like have effects on the logo and stuff. I was so excited to be like finally being like, this is my first time. And for whatever reason, after the pandemic started to kind of like wane down, I haven't really gotten back out there. I have a projector and I had, you know, been making a lot more visuals. Psychedelic visuals are really fun though. I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's one of those things where it can be, there's times where it can be laborious, like you're, you know, just in After Effects or Premiere, like working with a bunch of really specific stuff where you're like, this is annoying and I don't want to have to do this anymore. But I mean, anyway, I just wanted to bring it up because I've seen that you've done that in the past. That's like one of the ways I kind of feel like I related to you over the years is that you're not just trying to be like a musician. You're like, I want to be able to, you know, make visuals for my band or, you know, run the lights for a band like mine or, you know.
Well, in addition to being a perfectionist, I'm also a control freak. So, you know, when I see that you can do something live, I want to know how to do it. Yeah. So that I can do it myself, or at least that was what that's how I used to go about it. But now it's like with the Burning Peppermints, I was like, I'm going to direct all the music videos. I'm going to do all the visuals. I'm going to write all the songs. I'm going to produce all the songs. I'm going to record all the songs. I'll actually even play most of the instruments. I'll do that as like, I give myself I have too many jobs in this band.
Yeah, it's
way too much. And something I realized doing lighting too, was specialize. It's good. It's important. It's good to be good. It's good to be really good at something. There's nothing wrong with trying out different things. I constantly learned things about lights that help me as a songwriter.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa. But all that's to say, specialization is great. It is really awesome to be able to go to a specialist and say, I need you to mix the band. And it's not somebody like me who kind of knows how to do it. It's somebody that actually knows how to do it.
Master of all trades, or jack of all trades, master of none, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a good and bad to both of that, though, because I am glad that I know enough about all of these things to effectively communicate with those people.
That's what, that is like the best part of it, is being able to, because like I've worked with bands who I'm making a music video for them. None of them know anything about cameras. And then they'll make a request for like, well, can we do a shot like this? And I'm like, you're talking about like cinematic, like $1 million movie shots that I don't have the gear for. Whereas if you know what you're talking about, you can go, you know, the limits at least of what they're able to do.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's small things. You know, I think the funniest example that I can think of is I was working with somebody one time trying to produce this track for them, and they're like, can we get more of that like grungy sound? And I was like, what do you mean? And I realized eventually they were talking about distortion.
Okay, yeah.
But it's like, that's why I want to know, I think now that I've realized how good specialization is, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I can speak the language of these things, because if I'm going to have specific input on it, I need to know how to communicate those specific inputs. I'm still the one of the big things that I'm still not good at as far as that's concerned is film stuff. It's a perfectionist thing, but I hate being like, can we, blah, blah, and they're like, what do you mean? That's not what that's called. Yeah. Oh no, that's actually, those are two different, you keep calling this thing, and it's actually this thing.
The only reason that, I was going to bring up, the only reason that that's ever bothered me, I don't hold it against someone when they don't understand.
Oh, but I get it, because I do it with lights all the time.
But I think that what bothers me is I've tried to explain to someone like, what you're asking me for, you're misusing this term. And so I think what you mean is this term. And a good example is I've had someone be like, can we color grade this so that like, because I feel like it's like, you know, the color, like, you know, the white looks too blue. And I'm kind of like, I think what you mean is color correct, where like color correcting is getting it to where it looks like natural light. Yeah. And then color grading is, well, we want the reds to have this kind of tone. We want the greens to, you know, that kind of thing. So like, they don't understand that. And so they're saying, well, I need you to color grade. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have to pay me more to color grade. Color correcting is in the contract. Because that's pretty simple. It's like, and you know, but not everybody understands that, and I understand that, but it just, that's when it gets to be
it happens to me with lighting all the time, when people call everything that moves on the stage a spotlight. Like there's actually, they have different names, and they do different things.
Another thing with the cameras that probably relates to lights is, I don't know if lighting terms about a light when it moves is similar to a camera, but people will be like, can the camera pan down? And I'm like, do you mean tilt? Like, that's different. I mean, and I don't even know all those. Like there's one that there's tilt, roll, you know, there's a lot of parameters, but, and some people act like, well, you don't need all that jargon. And I'm like, you need it for specificity. You don't need it to be a good videographer. You need it so you know how to communicate, like you said.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's just like sheet music and stuff. It's a way to very clearly and succinctly communicate exactly what you're trying to say. Yeah. Because what I think is, what maybe some people aren't aware of a lot of the time is there's so many moving parts, and oftentimes a lot of people working on big productions, you have to have a common like language that you all speak, because it's extremely important that you be specific in those scenarios. And my mentor for lighting would always annoy me, but you know, I think I called a plot a blueprint, and he was like, it's not a blueprint, it's a plot. I was like, okay, whatever, you know what I meant. He's like, okay, yeah, I did know what you mean, but I don't want you to show up somewhere and call it a blueprint and then look like a dumbass because it's called a plot. And that's what everybody else is gonna call it, and they're gonna think you're dumb if you call it the other thing. Yeah. And it's like that, it's annoying, but then you realize the more you learn about it, the more you're like, no, it is important to use the proper terminology for things. And
honestly, what I've learned over the years is if I don't know what something means, I don't use it. Like I used to misuse terms. I would just, you know, be like, oh yeah, this. And then now I'm like, I'll be honest and be like, I think I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not positive.
Oh yeah, no, I also, especially as I'm only in like a year of this, and I absorb as much information as I can, but you know, somebody mentions like a cable type, I don't know, I'm like, what is that? You know? Yeah. And it takes especially in that industry, everybody's, you know, very intense and very, you know, proud that they know stuff, it can be kind of scary to be like, hey, I actually don't know what you're talking about. Sometimes people are very kind and they understand that, you know, everybody has to learn stuff, but sometimes people are like, really? And they like, one time somebody asked me at a gig on this tour, do you have, I can't even remember the name of the cable they were asking me if I had. It was some very specific type of power cable. And I was like, what is that? And he just walked away from me.
Yeah, I feel like that definitely happens, like you said, as a parallel in like the film world. But and I mean, I've worked on I've never, as like a crew member, worked on anything bigger than like some indie production where I was getting paid very little. But like I've been an extra on a bunch of movies where you should see the way some of them like talk to the extras, because like if an extra walks up and says, because that's kind of like the lowest on the totem pole, extras say the dumbest shit to them all the time, where they're just like, all right, whatever. But anyway, getting off that a little bit, I want to kind of shift the conversation slightly, give some maybe praise to some local music. Something I'm really, like I mentioned, I really like the fact on this podcast that I get to meet and hear about local like stuff that is not going to be reviewed on pitchfork.com, or, you know, it maybe from a band that has like 100 followers on Instagram. I brought in something I like to do on the show sometimes is recommendations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, and if you don't have any, that's fine, but I'm going to give you a couple recommendations of bands from Atlanta, because that's where I just moved from, that you might not know about, that I think that are kind of in the vein of like your music and what you like, and we can kind of talk about them. And then if you have any recommendations for like local Birmingham bands, I would love to talk about those, especially if they've released something more recently, that just to kind of give some praise out there. So a couple of my favorite bands in Atlanta that I think that are kind of similar to your sound and everything. There's a band, I believe, I've never heard them say it like out loud because I haven't actually seen them live, but they're called the Melties. It's MLTYS. And their music, they had an album that came out this past year. I can't remember the name of it, but it's great. And it's like from the first song through the last, it kind of explores a lot of different psychedelic rock sounds. Like they have a song on there, I think it's the second or third track, called Eternal Blue. That's one of my favorites. It sounds very King Gizzardy, like heavy kind of King Gizzard stuff. And that's like one of my favorite tracks on the album. But like in general, that's a really good album. I mean, I don't know if they really tour, but if they ever come to Birmingham, the Melties, that they're great.
Nice.
So that's one to recommend. And then this next band, I've followed for a few years, and I think I've met them before at a show. But they're from, I think originally from Athens, but they play shows in Atlanta all the time. So they're back and forth. They're called Moloch, MOLOQ.
Nice.
Which I think is the name of a monster in like a Norse mythology or something. I think someone explained, because I thought they were called Moloch, but then when you hear them pronounce it, it's Moloch. Their music is like, it has a great range to it. Like they've, their second album is really, really good. It has a song on it called Ruckus Al Ghul that's like very, it sounds like
awesome.
It sounds
that's
like,
so sick.
It's an instrumental, and it sounds like a very Eastern, like dancey kind of psychedelic song that's like, I mean, but the cool thing about their music is that it morphs between this like very electronic and just like I would actually compare them probably to MGMT, because like it ranges from like a very electronic kind of sound, like psychedelic sound, that's just like has otherworldly instruments that you've never heard of. That's what it's been more of for the past couple of years. But then it also, some of it is just kind of like pretty good psychedelic rock that's got like lighter, kind of poppier psychedelic rock.
Nice.
That's got like I don't know how to really describe it, but like Moloch, you should definitely check them out. So tell me, do you have recommendations from Birmingham?
Oh, definitely. If you haven't heard of her yet, you should absolutely listen to Hannah Camille.
I haven't.
Or Hannah Camille. I always say Camille. It's Camille. Her name is actually spelled Jahnah. Very interesting spelling of Hannah. She's incredible. Really, really amazing songwriter. Incredible voice. Like, definitely the talent I am most excited about in Birmingham right now. She just has some incredible layered beautiful songwriting. And the best is yet to come, because I saw her, we actually played a show, Peppermints and her, in Huntsville recently, and she did an acoustic performance, and a lot of she mentioned during the set that a lot of the songs that were my favorite, she's like, oh, I'm recording this one right now, it'll be out soon. And I'm like, oh, good. And she recently announced, she told me, we spoke after the show, that she's got new music coming out. She's just really, really good. The track Elliot, great music video too. That's my favorite. I actually listened to Elliot so many times on YouTube that YouTube popped up a little recommended artist for you, Hannah Camille, and like explore nice. More artists like this. So I'm definitely a super fan. She's incredible. She's really, really, really good. Definitely my favorite band from Birmingham right now. And yeah, she puts on great live shows, but yeah, check out her music. She's great.
Awesome. Anything else? Just her for now? I mean, it's fine if that's.
I mean, in terms of like a recording artist, definitely. But I think the other really cool thing going on right now in Birmingham is there's like a big like DJ scene that's started up in the last like 12 months.
Yeah.
There's Steve-O Black and
is that like Steve-O that everyone like? He's the only guy named Steve-O, right? I mean,
yeah, he's
okay. It's a Steve-O I know then. Yeah.
Yeah. He's incredible. He's so good. Mellow Melon, Andrea Reilly, like
they what school
they're all so talented, and like that's been one of the highlights of doing lights at Saturn, and all the Latinos con ondas. I think I said that right, guys. They put on stuff at Saturn all the time. All of those DJ nights are just like so much fun and such a good time. Nice. They're so much fun to do lights for, but it's just awesome because just seeing in the past year, like more and more people come out to those just to dance and have a good, I'm like, what's going on? People going out and like dancing. Like this is,
maybe it's a post-COVID thing.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. People are celebrating, and but it's beautiful. I really, really love that. And that's purely a live thing,
Yeah. Well, someone who I only listened to this album within the past like month, but it's been out for like a year. The Phantom Limb album, Pastoral from last year.
Oh, it's spectacular.
God. That's my favorite like Birmingham discovery that I've had over
well, Andrew lives in Atlanta now.
Really?
I think that
but I mean, it was based here, right?
It was, for a time. But Andrew lives in Atlanta now.
Well, I did not know that. I don't think he and I have actually met, but we've been in the same room.
And I think that he actually, funny enough, I think that he still comes back to Birmingham to practice, because I think that their practice space is here. I know that the bass player Peyton still lives here, or at least he did last time that I checked.
But like that's the kind of experimental, weird, psychedelic stuff that I'm like, keep that. Like I love. I don't know what it is. Psychedelic music will always be my main love. And it sucks to me when the only scene that a city has is like honestly, for a while, I felt like Burning Peppermints was like the only real psychedelic band that I saw here. That was pretty overtly psychedelic, and everything else was like kind of indie, and it just sounded like kind of like variations of the same stuff. If I'm not,
I mean, just on the subject of psychedelic bands in Birmingham, I don't know when they'll release any more music or if they are still releasing music, but GT's great. No, super good.
I forgot about them. I've seen them playing times.
GT is like, Hannah Camille is great. GT is my like all-time go. Like I love GT so much. I will go out of my way to go see them whenever I can. I'll be in the front row. I'll be singing along with the songs. I've gotten to do lights for them a few times, and I love doing lights for them because I know like every beat of every song to that music. Like they're just incredible. Like God, they're so good. You know what?
I'm being an idiot because I mean,
and there's Dirty Lungs and Ray.
I was going to say that Dirty Lungs and Ray are great, but you know what I mean about not. I don't see those as overtly. Those are kind of like psych adjacent. Whereas Burning Peppermints to me sounds like early King Gizzard or the OCs, or at least the earlier sounds, or like, or Ty Segall, stuff like, is it Siegel or Segall? I hear different stuff.
He actually says Siegel.
Okay, I've heard.
And it cracked my mind straight in half because I was like, how is that actually how you say it? And then
because there's 2 L's on the end.
And he said it. He's said it in videos. There's videos of him calling himself Ty Segall. So that is how you say it. And I have to force myself to say it that way every time because I call him Segall for years.
But I think my point is, like, I am so into like a more overt, like, psychedelic kind of sound. And I've had people be like, well, this one band is like, and I'm like, I call that maybe psych rock or something, but it's just, I like, a real, something that harkens back to like a 60s sound. That's what always to me will be like the most like psychedelic kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's probably the main, like, sorry, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Oh wait, no, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Captain Kudzu's here. What am I talking about? Like, which I mean is, I wouldn't say that his music is like overtly psychedelic throughout, but it's definitely Jackson's always had that, I mean, I've known him since we were in like 7th or 8th grade, and he's always kind of had that, like shifting more towards the ethereal or weird kind of stuff. So
Kudzu and that was that Opelika show that you were talking about, or well, no, not the Opelika, it was Mama Mocha's show.
Yeah. Which I wasn't at.
I don't know if Mama Mocha's was in Opelika. With the floor almost caved in that night.
Now Mama Mocha's is in Opelika. At the time it was in Auburn. It's right. Yeah, it's changed around.
But that was Captain Kudzu and Lady Legs and us. That was to have a lineup like that again. Wow. Guys, so this is the call. I know you watched this whole episode because you love me so much. We're going to make this show happen again. And as soon as you see this episode, just DM me and we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, so like kind of to wrap up the conversation, because I mean, it's been a great one. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming out.
Of course. It's nice to be in a different setting than my home studio. It's really nice to like change things up. What's next for Burning Peppermints? Like, do you have something coming out that you want to promote, or do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, nothing that I can formally say about the upcoming album at this point in time. But on the note of specialization, we did just go and record our first album at like a studio that wasn't us recording ourselves.
Nice.
That was very exciting. I'm very, very happy with the recording. It's being mixed right now, and we will be releasing it next year at some point. The material is our Witch Mountain material, which was what we were predominantly playing when we played back at Sloss Fest. That's what I mean about perfectionism. Sucks. I've had this material.
That's been a while, like 5-6 years.
So long. It's stupid, Peter. I shouldn't have lasted. It shouldn't have taken that long. Yeah. That was my problem, though. But all that being said, it sounds spectacular, and I can't wait to share it with everybody because it really is. It really is what I always did want it to be, and I can say that confidently. It's going to be glorious. I'm excited to share it with people.
I'm excited. I love when a podcast guest has something to like, keep your eyes out because it's going to be good. Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could say, oh, I know it's coming out this day and, all of that sort of stuff, but it's coming. It's coming down the pipes. It's being mixed. We're not just talking about it. We're making it happen.
Awesome. That's awesome, dude. Is there anything else you want to promote? Because I think we're going to probably wrap the conversation up.
Only other thing is, if you like Burning Peppermints and you like disco, go give my disco project, Liquid Magic, a follow.
Yeah.
Need some more follows on that page. I got some more Liquid Magic music coming out too. I got a lot of Liquid Magic songs that I'm finishing that'll be just dropping here and there.
Nice.
So yeah, go check Liquid Magic out. Good stuff to come for that too. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have my first Liquid Magic show sometime early next year.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully I can make it out to that one. You can find us, PsychoActivision, on YouTube at PsychoActivision. Actually, technically our handle is PsychoActivision ATL. We're not based there anymore, but someone else already took PsychoActivision. So anyway, would you guess that would be a name that someone else would have? Anyway, just gonna wrap things up. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at PsychoActivision. You know, keep an eye out for more podcast episodes. Keep an eye out for Burning Peppermints music, Liquid Magic music. And yeah, this has been a fun conversation. So thanks a lot, dude. It's been a good time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.